Hi, this is Paul Davies, and welcome to this presentation on getting your first 100 customers. This will be broken up into 4 sections. First one, what is sales? The next is the technology adoption curve, the types of customers, and practical takeaways. So how do we define what sales is? My version of this reality is that sales is the act of moving people to help them realize a mutual benefit. According to Daniel Pink, who wrote To Sell is Human, we are all in sales. Whether we're a teacher, a parent, whatever we do, we are in the act of moving people and persuading people to make progress. The other interesting approach is that good sales is hidden, and conversely, bad sales is very obvious. We tend to remember the bad sales approaches from telemarketers or various people trying to pitch things to us. The great selling is often hidden. And finally, your business success is critically determined by the way you design your distribution or sales. You can't succeed in a business with a great product but poor distribution strategy. In order to be successful in sales, you must be committed. This is not negotiable. You need to commit to at least 1 hour to 2 hours a day, every day. Start in the morning, start to make it your first thing you achieve, and then focus on tracking your metrics. Metrics are around how many outbound calls you've made, outbound emails, how many meetings you've booked, what proposals have you submitted, and what sales have you closed. These metrics are critical, and focus on these metrics and you'll get the results that you need. You'll be able to easily see where things are slowing down. And finally, be consistent. This is your life's work. The success of your startup and business is reliant on you selling. So make it a consistent effort for the next 5 to 10 years. Now let's talk about prospecting. Prospecting is hard. I've been doing sales for 18 years. I still find it a challenge to pick up the phone. It's not easy. Just deal with it. Also, be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else, somebody that you're not. Allow people to get to know who you are and your preferences and how you operate. Don't be fake. The other thing is to be a little bit stoic and expect to get rejection. In fact, most of your results will be rejections, and that's okay. Everybody gets rejected. If you expect it, then it's going to be less disappointed and it'll be less jarring for you as you go throughout the day. Use your sales muscle. What I mean by this is the more you work and practice on something, the better you'll get at it. It'll be easier to make those calls and do the prospecting because you have a level of experience and you're getting better at what you do, and that gives you confidence. And finally, with prospecting, empathy is critical. So being able to relate to the customer and really feel that you understand their challenges and that you can reflect that back to them. Now, this is my take on the first meeting you have with potential customers. The first priority is to build a relationship with the customer. Build an understanding of what they're doing, what their priorities are. Understand what they're trying to achieve. Next, think about your approach similar to a doctor. Think about the last time you saw a doctor. The first thing they'll do when they understand your challenge is to try and diagnose and try and understand and do tests and before making any recommendations or any pitches to what the solution could be. Hold back on trying to pitch your product before or until you've understood what their challenges are. Next is to ask the single most important question. What is that question? We'll cover that in the next slide. And finally, Learn to differentiate between what the customer benefits are and what your product features are. People don't care about what your product is. They really don't. They care about the benefits, and they hope that the product that you're selling to them will give them the benefits they're looking for. Now I'm going to talk about the single most important question you need to ask in your first meeting. Are you curious? Let's go. So you can ask this question in different ways. One version is, how does your organization make decisions? What you're trying to do is understand, once the first meeting is finished, once you've had a really good discussion and you know what they're looking for, that you have a bit of an understanding of what's going to occur in the next week or two. If you don't, what happens is that you'll send them a proposal and they won't get back to you, and you won't know why, and it'll drive you mad. So instead, be upfront and ask that in the first meeting. What needs to occur? How can we better understand your decision process? So another version is, if we proceed, what steps need to occur from here? And the third option is, can you help me better understand your organization's decision process? As I said before, this is the most important question you should ask. Think about the way you'll ask this question and how you'll phrase it, and even practice it before you have that meeting, so it'll be easier to ask and you'll be less uncomfortable. Trust me, if you don't ask the question, you're going to regret it. Before we talk about closing, I want to make a single point that is really important, and that is, it's really bad to ask for the business and the customer saying no. It's not only bad that they're saying no, but also bad that it signals that you're out of step, you're not in sync with your customer, and that's not a good thing. And that process where the customer has declined and you haven't found out why, that can disrupt the whole sales process and could ruin the deal. So asking for the business is important, but also understanding where the customer is at before asking gives you the best chance of success. Ideally, you want to be having the customer saying yes all along, and as you uncover potential obstacles, you resolve them in collaboration with the customer. So, as I said before, understand the customer really well before you ask for the business, and here are a few questions you can ask yourself. Firstly, is the opportunity not only real in my mind, but also real with the customer? Are they committed? Do they have a strong reason to make a decision and make it now? Do you understand their decision process? You asked it in the first meeting, and have you clarified it along the way as it changes? Do you understand their timeframes? This question can be around, when does the customer want to receive these benefits that they're seeking? And lastly, who has the power to sign off? Is it the customer you're meeting with, their boss, or somebody else? You need to understand these things and work with the customer through all these issues before you're really ready to ask for the business. Here is a really simple approach for asking for the business or closing. As I mentioned in the last slide, you need to really understand the customer, where they're at, and confirm their intent before you ask for the business. This is critical. So first, confirm intent. The next question is, ask them when they want to see the value of your product. Now, there's one thing to purchase the product, and there's another is the value that the customer hopes to receive by purchasing your product. And it's an important thing to differentiate. So the customer might answer you this question by saying, well, they want to receive the value in 2 months' time. So that gives you a line in the sand to be able to say, that's fantastic. Our onboarding process and training takes about 6 weeks. So in order for you to receive the value that you're seeking in the time frame that you're after, you need to then be making a decision in the next 2 weeks. So essentially you're working backwards. You're working backwards from when they want to receive the value, and then you're helping them to achieve that.
So this is really important. You're working on the customer's time frame, not your own. Now you might have investors or bosses breathing down your neck to say close, 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 but the best reason that you can use for a customer is their very own reason. So work on their time frame, on when they want to see the value, and then be bold and confident in telling them what they need to do to achieve that. You can be really confident and assertive at that time when you both understand what they're trying to achieve. This section is the technology adoption curve, and I'm going to point out some particular opportunities and challenges that early stage technology startups will encounter. As a startup and starting to sell your product, you're most likely to start selling to your own network first. This is deceptively easy. As a founder, you've got the skills and the relationships and impact to be very successful in selling to your own network. However, there are dangers. Just because you can sell and you can get customers on board at this very early stage can give you some false positives, some false misleading information about the viability of your product and how well it will scale. Now, selling to early adopters is also quite easy. You only need to identify them. There is actually very little selling to be done. Who are the early adopters in your industry that are passionate, that see themselves as forward-thinking? Identify who they are and share your vision, and they'll most likely follow. It's very easy to sell to them once you've nailed that. Now, selling to the early majority. This is where it gets fun. These guys are pragmatic customers. They compare alternatives. They compare you as an early startup with suppliers that have been around for many years and different types of products in different categories that can do the same thing. They do not care that you're a startup. Unlike the early adopters, they don't care. They don't care about you or your product. They care about the value that they're looking for. Now, this is a challenge. This is really a big challenge for startups, because selling to your network and selling to the early adopters, you just need to share the vision, your passion, and you'll get over the line. But there can be flaws in your product that can have existed up till this time unknown, because people have all been drinking the Kool-Aid and they've been really loving the dream that you've been offering them. But this is where it counts. So you're dealing with more complex issues when you're selling to the early majority. You need to think about different ways to sell your products and different problems or jobs that your customer is trying to sell. Think about a theory called jobs theory and Google that. There's a lot of interesting approaches to look at in terms of selling and solving those problems that your customers have. And a big success for you is making sure that customer success works for your business as a technology startup. Now, you don't want to be churning through customers, getting in lots of customers through the door, and then having them exit 6 months later. It takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of money to onboard customers and to sell them. So customer success becomes a really important issue at this stage of your startup's existence. We're now going to talk about the different types of customers that you're going to be chasing down. This is important because depending on your customer and the spend they have for your product, it will have a massive impact on what your business will look like. There's a guy called Christopher Jantz who wrote a really awesome article called 5 Ways to Build a $100 Million Business. Now, he did this in a really interesting way. He broke down the 5 animals that are worth a certain dollar value. Flies are $10 a year, mice $100 a year, rabbits are $1,000 a year, deers are $10,000, and elephants are $100,000 and above. Here are some examples of the different animal categories. So for flies, you're looking at online advertising revenue. This could be something like Google or Facebook. They, on average, will expect $10 in revenue per customer. Mice, obviously, are a little bit higher. They're a subscription service, something like MailChimp or Evernote. So mostly retail customers that they're chasing. Rabbits are a little bit higher. Often these are online tools, and they go to both consumers and some businesses. You're looking at about $1,000 per year. Now deers, these are the $10,000 category. This is where you start to build your own sales force. Even at $10,000 per year, it's probably a telesales, but you can also have a direct field sales result as well. The elephants, they are the really interesting ones where you're earning $100,000 or greater, and these can be these are enterprise solutions. You've got a professional sales force, and the sales cycles are complex and long, but you can make big money for your startup. So that can be anything from Workday, Viva, SuccessFactors, and Salesforce. Here are some observations that many people have made in regards to hunting these various different types of animals. You need to tailor the sales process to the type of animal you're hunting. A good way to do this is look at the other hunters out there that are hunting the same animal as you are. If you're hunting rabbits, look at other rabbit hunters. What are they doing with their onboarding process? How do they manage customer success, and how do they manage to optimize their sales? If you do this, you'll pick up a lot of tips and a lot of interesting insights into how to grow your startup a lot faster. There's also many case studies on how startups have started as rabbits, which is $1,000 a year, and have demonstrated enough value and been able to migrate to deers. So don't discount this. Think about where you can start at and get your foothold in, and then how you can migrate up that value chain. And lastly, there is a lot of interest from investors on companies that can sell to elephants. The reason being is that if you're selling $100,000 a year or $200,000 or $1 million a year, your startup can grow very quickly if you have the right product and the right mix. So think about that for your SaaS and whether you might be selling to elephants one day. And finally, here's some practical takeaways that hopefully will help you to achieve your first 100 customers for your startup. Firstly, focus on building a large portfolio of opportunities. Don't be like a lot of startups I find, where they find a few really good opportunities and they just sit on them, waiting for them to come through and close. You need to be actively building and building and building in order to be successful and get that 100 customers. And similar to this, you need to then, as you go through so many potential customers and opportunities, cut back the ones that are not performing. You can put them back as leads and touch base with them in 6 months' time. But if they're not going to decide for another 2 years, don't waste more time on them. Just keep a light touch so that you can then, you've got clear skies to proceed forward with new opportunities, opening new doors and getting your product out there. Similar to this, you've got to plan your day. As I've mentioned before, make sales the first thing you do in the day, but also cut out the things that aren't working and scale up the things that are working and getting you traction. Jason Lemkins had a quote that when you achieve your first 10 unaffiliated customers, that's a great signal to both yourself and investors that you found something of value, that 10 customers that aren't connected to you will come forward and that will buy your product. There's also another suggestion, is that you really need to give your startup 24 months to get real traction in sales, typically. So imagine if it takes 9 months to get the right product fit out there in terms of testing the customers and getting the right mix. then the rest of those 24 months is focused on selling, 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 so that you can have a good suite of customers at the end. And finally, 100 customers. It sounds very daunting, but it's best to chunk it down. Focus on your first 10 customers if you've got no customers. Then as you've got 10, work really hard so you can get 25. At 25 customers, that's a lot of good customers that can give you endorsements, good case studies, and you'll find that that will lead to a greater success in achieving 50 customers. Working really hard, you should be able to get to 100 once you've had 50. Now, how to do this and whether this takes 6 months or 2 years or 5 years really depends on a number of factors. Whether you've got the right sales skills, whether the product's ready, whether the market's ready, and how the market is interacting. So give it your best shot. Focus on what's in front of you and keep it real. And finally, I wish you good luck. I really hope that this presentation has given you some encouragement as a startup founder that sales is a lot of hard work, but you can achieve it, and that you've got the skills to build on in order to achieve that as a startup founder. Please let me know if there's any additional information or content that can help you in the future. Thank you.